a bowl of ugali with egg, boiled with fried eggs and sukuma wiki. The next day, she didn't come back home in the evening. They went looking for her and they found her in a pulverized. She had gone to visit a friend in the neighboring, I think it was the Ufundi Sacco building, which collapsed, neighboring the embassy. This is a tragedy that for me rings close. And on the eventful day, I had come, a teacher from my village had asked me to follow up his case with the TSC. I had gone to the bus station, picked a letter, and gone to that bell-bottom house on first floor to deliver that letter. They were having a cup of tea, and I left. They offered me tea, but I did not take the tea. I was hurrying back to my office at NSSF. As I was walking just past the telecom, I got myself in total anarchy, total confusion. I don't know what was happening. I fell down and I woke up and I ran. And I ran and went up the stairs, going to the post office. That's when I looked back and I saw there was darkness and everything, a lot of dust and what have you. I remember running back to that place, and there was complete chaos. The water had broken. The electricity was flashing all over. And I had the presence of mind to run down into the basement to look for the main switch, to turn off the power, only to find that the place was secured in a metal cage, the switch, and it was not possible to get to the switch. I ran to Uchumi. They were closing down. I bought 2 torches. I bought a panga. And I ran back down to cut that cable, which I did. And when I was going in, I ran into a Marine, an American Marine, who was running around and he snatched me one of the spotlights I had bought. Then we began evacuating people. A photographer captured me. Somebody came to me with photographs later of the event. So August 7th, 1998, was a day that is very close to my heart. And I always tell myself, if only I had stopped to take that tea, I would not be here today. Because I ran back when we were trying to evacuate, I went back to that room. And all those people I had seen in that room were dead in the bell-bottom house. I never got to the American embassy. So this is something that is long overdue. These were victims of a terrorist attack. They were not victims of their own doing. I have a friend called Sidialo. He was driving past. He went blind. And there are very many victims who were there who died on that day. So for me, I think this motion is long overdue. But I want to approach this question as one that has got legal foundations. There is something called the duty of care. The Americans knew very well that they were a high target. And here they came and located their embassy in the heart of the city. Did they exercise the duty of care towards the Kenyan public? If I'm walking past a place and I'm attacked by a swarm of bees and I run into my friend Dr. Bon Khalwale, and I pass and I leave the swarm of bees with him, did I have a duty of care towards him? Should I have run towards him or should I have run away from him? So the duty of care for me is what we should address also in this motion, that the Americans were well aware their embassy was a target. They never secured it. They never secured it. It was porous. It was in the heart of Nairobi. And so they bear responsibility for what happened. On the other part, the Kenyan state, which allowed that to happen, knowing very well the Americans were a high-risk target, we saw what the Israelis have been doing with their embassy. on Bishop's Road. When they were still there, they have now moved out. The road is now open. But you see the kind of security they had around there. They know they are a target. They are in an international war. So they did not just come and plant themselves out there and let it be. So we cannot talk of collateral damage. These people were basically maybe being used as some cover or something, but the Americans have a responsibility to compensate them. In America, they came up with the Embassy Employee Compensation Act to take care of the victims of the bombings in Dar es Salaam and Nairobi. And that act has helped them. It's run along the same lines whereby they compensate people who suffer from terrorist attacks in aircrafts or wherever. And they compensate for physical harm, economic losses, non-economic losses, such as physical and emotional harm, and loss of life, loss of enjoyment of life, and anything you can imagine, they compensate for. And the standards they maintain in that act are the standards that they apply when there's a terrorist attack anywhere in the world and their citizens are involved. I think the time has come when the Kenyan state needs to take action and demand that they have got a right to be compensated, and the victims have a right to be compensated. And this one has to be done consciously, because this is not something the first time this thing is happening. Our great-grandfathers, and for some of us who are old, our grandfathers, fought in the First World War and in the Second World War. Some were killed, some were maimed, some came back without injury, but they'd lost their life, their fruitful time serving the empire. They were not compensated. They were given meaningless medals to hang on their lapels. Some helped them get wives because the people were attracted to the medals. But beyond that, there were no personal benefits to these people. And most have died in abject poverty. We saw recently in the UK, with the thing they call the Gakas or something, these people from Nepal, the soldiers from Nepal who fight for the British Empire. Dr. Halwale could inform me their name if he knows. But the Gakas were also having a problem until they confronted the British state. So this idea of being taken as collateral or things that don't matter is not acceptable. We should not allow what happened to our forefathers who fought for the empire and who are victims of wars they knew nothing about, wars of white men they knew nothing about, and they came away with nothing, and yet those people they fought with, those people they died with were compensated, they are buried in good graves, and are commemorated. So I think that beyond this motion, it should try to lead us towards creating a compensation program administered by the AG. The other day we were discussing the issue of the victims of crime, Madam Speaker, in the committee where we are, the Victims of Crime Act, which has been on the shelves ever since. Maybe we need to look at things now. Terrorism has become part of our life. We need to look at a way of coming up with a compensation program that can be used to compensate beyond the bomb blast victims, to also compensate people who are being killed by terrorists. Just the other day, policemen were blown up, and they were driving a light-skinned vehicle, which you would ask yourself, the soldiers who are killed, what happens to their families? They died serving this country. What happens to their families? They're being killed in Boni Forest. They're being killed on the border in Al-Shabaab. So I think the time has come for us to come up with a compensation program, preferably administered by the Attorney General, to ensure that victims of people who die serving this country do not lose it all. They lose their lives, but we give something small to their families, at least to ensure that their children go to school, that their widows or widowers continue having a modicum of good life, and we have a way of saying thank you for what happened. And so I support this motion by my friend Senator Kavindu, and I beg that when it passes, some action be taken to ensure that the victims of the bomb blast, including the little girl Bonita Achola, her father is now an old man, retired, get compensated, and at least they are compensated in time before they get too old to recognize what the compensation is all about. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support the motion. Thank you.
Senator Khalwale.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, like everybody who's spoken before me, I'm so indebted to Senator Kavindu for this motion. And I rise to support it for all the good reasons, for all the deserved reasons. But amongst them, Madam Speaker, I support it because of my brother Moses Mwani. Moses Mwani from Shinyalu was working with the Teacher Service Commission